This video is on question 8 costing, and it is on overhead apportionment and job costing. So this came up in 2019, so that is the question we're going to look at now. So Rooney Limited has two production departments, X and Y, and two ancillary service departments, 1 and 2. The following costs relate to 2019. So you can see there we've got indirect materials and indirect labour, you've got your total amounts, and they're split up into production X and production Y, and there is none in service 1 or service 2. Then you've got machine maintenance, the total cost 18,000, depreciation of factory buildings, total cost 36,000, factory light and heat, total cost 24,000, factory cleaning, total cost 10,000, factory canteen, total cost there 8,750. The following information relates to the production and service departments. So we have here total production X, production Y, service 1, service 2. So we have volume in cubic meters, total 9,000, and then it's split up into the 4 different departments, all the different amounts of volume. Then we have floor area in total meters, so the total is 2,000, and then it's split up, the 2,000 is split up between the different departments. Number of employees, 700 in total, which is split up between 3 departments there is none in service department 2. Book value of buildings, €900,000, which is split up between the 4 departments. Machine hours, 80,000 hours, split up between production X and production Y. There is none in service 1 and 2. And then we have labour hours, €40,000 split up, 40,000 labour hours split up into 10,000 labour hours for X and 30,000 labour hours for Y. Now it says service departments are to be transferred to the production departments on the following percentage basis: production X and production Y. So service 1, 60% production X and 40% production Y. Service 2, 55% production X and 45% production Y. Job number 925 has just been completed. The details are direct materials, direct labour, machine hours, labour hours. So production X, 8,500 euro direct materials, and then 3,000 direct labour. Production Y, 3,800 direct materials, 4,900 direct labour. And then we have machine hours, production X 100, and machine hours production Y 120. Labour hours in production X is 50, and labour hours in production Y is 200. The company budgets for a profit margin of 20%. So part A asks us to calculate the overhead to be absorbed by each department, showing clearly the basis of apportionment used. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to write down all of this information into your answer booklet, okay, and we're going to split up the totals between all of the different departments using a suitable basis of apportionment. And where are we going to find that out? Well, we'll have a better look at it now. So what you have to do here, select a suitable basis of apportionment for each overhead. In this question, indirect materials and indirect labour have already been apportioned for you, so you can see that there they've already been done. It is necessary for you to apportion overheads between departments using a suitable basis of apportionment. Which do you think you will use? Okay, so let's have a look. We are going to look at this information here, which relates to the production and service departments. So we'll have a look at this information here and see which might apply. So machine maintenance, if we want to match it up with something here, would be machine hours. Depreciation of factory buildings would be book value of buildings. Factory light and heat would be volume in cubic meters. Factory cleaning would be floor area in square meters. And factory canteen would be number of employees. So, knowing what we've done there now, okay, just write them beside that, writing basis of apportionment beside it, and then we're going to look at each individual one. So machine hours is how we're going to split up machine maintenance. So we're going to split up the 18,000 to the different departments using the machine hours information. Okay, so you see here 80,000 machine hours in total, 48,000 of them are in production X, 32,000 are in production Y, and none in either service department. So if we want to work that out, 18 multiplied by 48,000 from production X divided by 80,000 is equal to 10,800. So that's going to go into production X. And then into production Y, we're going to put 18,000 or 18,000 here, multiplied by 32 over 80, which is 7,200. And nothing goes in service 1 or 2 because there are no hours, machine hours in service 1 and service 2. So that's machine maintenance done. Depreciation on factory buildings is going to be on book value of buildings. So total here 36,000. So production X 450 over 900 multiplied by your 36 is 18,000 euro there. Then we're going to look at 36. So the cost here 36 multiplied by 225 divided by 900 is 9,000. Then 36 multiplied by 150,000 over 900,000 total is 6,000. So 6,000 is going into service 1. Then service 2, it's going to be 36,000 depreciation on buildings multiplied by 75 over 900 is equal to 3,000 euro there for service department 2. Then factory light and heat. So we have volume in cubic meters is our basis of apportionment. So it's going to be 24,000 multiplied by 4,500 divided by 9,000, which is 12,000. Then production Y, 2,250 of the 9,000 meters cubed. So 24,000 multiplied by 2,250 divided by 9,000 is 6,000. Then service department 1, 1,500 of the meters squared are in service department 1. So it's going to be 24,000 multiplied by 1,500 divided by 9,000, and that is 4,000 euro. And then service department 2, that should say 2, apologies, we have 24,000 multiplied by 750 over 9,000, which is 2,000. Now, factory cleaning is next. So the total amount for factory cleaning is 10,000. So we need to split that 10,000 up between the 4 departments here. And we're doing it using the basis of floor area. So the floor area in total is 2,000 square meters there. So 1,000 square meters in production X, 600 square meters in production Y, 200 square meters in service 1 and 200 in service 2. So 10,000, okay, multiplied by 1,000 divided by 2,000 is 5,000 there. Then in production Y, we have 10,000 multiplied by 600 over 2,000, which is 3,000. Then in service department 1, it is 10,000 multiplied by 200 over 2,000, which is 1,000, and then service department 2, it is 10,000 multiplied by 200 over 2,000, which is 1,000 euro. Then we've got the factory canteen, so the cost there total 8,750 euro. So we need to split that up in between the number of employees within the different departments. So number of employees, 700 in total. There's 300 in production X, 300 in production Y, and 100 in service 1. So production X, 8,750 multiplied by 300 employees over 700 employees total, which is 3,750. Production Y, 8,750 multiplied by 300 employees divided by 700 employees total, which is 3,750. So the exact same as production X. Then the last 100 are in service department 1. So 8,750 multiplied by 100 over 700, and that is 1,250. And then there's none in service department 2, as you can see there. So that should be written into your copy. There's no need for you to draw tables or anything like that, just as long as it's very obvious where each figure is going. What we do is we're going to total all of those up. So production X cost there 594,550, production Y 383,950, service department 1 12,250 and service department 2 6,000. Now, just to recap, what does apportionment mean? So apportionment is where overheads cannot be specifically identified but are shared or divided between departments using an appropriate level or basis of apportionment. So part B of this question asks us to transfer the service department costs to production departments X and Y. So we need to take the total figures that we got here and we need to get rid of the figures from our service departments. We don't want to have any cost there in our service departments. Why do we do this? So service departments such as maintenance, finance or sales, for example, can't recover costs. Service departments are secondary to production departments, and as a result, service department costs must be transferred to production departments on an equitable basis. For example, machine hours. Overheads can only be recovered through production, i.e., they are included as a cost of production. Okay, so service departments are to be transferred to the production departments on the following percentage basis. So service 1, 60% production X and 40% production Y, and service 2 is to be put 55% into production X and 45% into production Y. So it's going to look like this. So we've got our totals. We don't want to have this 12,250 there, so we're going to take that away and split it up 60% into production X and 40% into production Y. And then service department 2, we're going to get rid of this 6,000 here, and we split that up 55,000 into production X and 45% into production Y. So then altogether production X is €605,200 and production Y is €391,550. Now part C of the question. Calculate a suitable overhead absorption rate for each department. So why do we do this? So all overheads must be absorbed into the cost of a product. Where overheads have been apportioned to departments, the absorption rate is based on some activity shared by departments. For example, direct labour hours or machine hours. Absorption is the method by which costs are charged to cost units or units of products in order to be recovered. An overhead absorption rate for each department can be calculated using a suitable basis such as a rate per unit, per labour hour and a per machine hour. To choose which absorption rate to be used, you need to identify the dominant activity in the department. So in a machine intensive department, a per machine hour rate would be used, and in a labour intensive department, a per labour hour rate would be used. So look at the information below that relates to this question about job number 925, so we can find the dominant activity in production department X and production department Y. So the dominant activity in production X is machine hours. So production X had 100 machine hours and 50 labour hours. Therefore, machine hours is the dominant activity in this department. Production Y had 120 machine hours and 200 labour hours. Therefore, labour hours is the dominant activity in this department. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at production X first of all. So the overhead rate in production X department will be €605,200 divided by 48,000 machine hours is equal to €12.61 per machine hour. Then the overhead rate in production Y department will be 391,550 divided by 30,000 labour hours. So that would be €13.05 per labour hour. Okay, moving on then to part D. Calculate the selling price of job number 925. Okay, so back looking at the question, calculating the selling price of job number 925. So the information is up here at the top of the screen. Job number 925 has just been completed. The details are direct materials for production X, €8,500 and production Y, €3,800. Direct labour for production X is €3,000 and for production Y is €4,900. Machine hours then and labour hours for each of the departments are there also, and then the company budgets for a profit margin of 20%. Okay, so selling price of job number 925. So we've got the direct materials, 85 plus 38 is 12,300. Direct labour, 3,000 plus 4,900 is 7,900. That is equal to the prime cost. So prime cost is just the total of the direct costs, is 20,200. Then the overheads, okay, we are going to multiply production X, right? We're going to have 100 machine hours by €12.61 because that's the dominant activity there. So 100 machine hours, okay, in production X multiplied by our 12.61, which we worked out in the last section of the question. And then production Y, we're going to multiply the 200 labour hours, by 13.05, which is €2,610. So the cost of job number 925 is 24,071 cents. So again, that should read labour hours there. Now, the company budgets for a profit margin of 20%. So therefore, this is 80%. So profit margin of 20% is €6,017.75. So therefore, selling price of job number 925 is €30,088.75. Now, part E, number 1. Explain why it is necessary to transfer service department overheads to production departments. And part 2, distinguish between the allocation, apportionment and absorption of costs. So, explain why it's necessary to transfer service department overheads to production departments. So, we've seen this already. Service departments can't recover costs. Service departments are secondary to production departments, and as a result, service department costs must be transferred to production departments on an equitable basis. For example, machine hours. Overheads can only be recovered through production, i.e. they are included as a cost of production. Part 2 then. Distinguish between the allocation, apportionment and absorption of costs. So allocation is where overhead costs can be specifically identified and charged to a particular department or cost centre. These overheads are allocated to that department. Apportionment is when overheads cannot be specifically identified but are shared or divided between departments using an appropriate basis of apportionment. And finally, absorption is the method by which costs are charged to cost units or units of products in order to be recovered. An overhead absorption rate for each department can be calculated using a suitable basis such as rate per unit, per labour hour and per machine hour. And that is the 2019 overhead apportionment and job costing question complete.